Hello, everyone. I hope you're all doing amazing. So, welcome to my channel. My name is Shani. I am a Western Sidereal astrologer, and we are going to be doing the weekly astrology for February 13th until the 18th, I believe that I have marked here. So, we're going to be looking over the main trends that's happening this week. I really kind of wanted to look over this week. I've been wanting to start the weekly transits for a while. I've always loved the formats of weekly transits, weekly astrology updates. And yeah, I've been feeling pulled to get into it and to get back into posting astrology content as I used to do so on my Instagram a while ago. So I wanted to start with this week since we're kind of going through a very intense week. We've got a few major alignments going on, especially in Capricorn. We've got a Mars-Pluto conjunction bringing some heat, definitely some intensity coming through. We've got a Venus-Pluto conjunction, which we'll all talk about throughout the video, but we've got some passion, some intensity, some transformation energy this week, honestly. A lot of transformative stuff happening this week, very Plutonian energy. We've got Aquarius season starting in Sidereal. And then we got a few other little transits that are happening in the background. So just a disclaimer before I do start, I am a Western sidereal astrologer, so I do not use the tropical algorithm. Sidereal astrology uses a different method of calculation, the same one that Vedic system uses. In the Western world, most people use the tropical algorithm. And with the tropical calculation, for example, in tropical, we're already in Aquarius season. But with Sidereal, we're actually still in Capricorn season right now, the day that I'm filming this, which is February 10th. Sidereal is simply a system that follows the actual movement of the stars and bases its system on the gradual movement of the stars. I recommend you make more research on your own if you want to learn more about Sidereal and if that's something you resonate with. But yeah, so first disclaimer, I do use a different system of calculating the charts. Second disclaimer that I like to kind of talk about when I do transit videos or transit astrology, generally speaking, is that astrology is just a tool to help us navigate the present moment. It is not there to control our lives. It's not there to make us overly alter the course of our actions. What I mean by that is that and this is a mistake that I often used to do when I first got into astrology is that, if there's a transit coming up for a day where there's a high probability of, let's say, verbal conflicts coming through, this does not mean that you should avoid talking to people. This does not mean that you shouldn't go out and socialize, right? It just means that there's a higher probability that it happens. Might not happen. Well, for a lot of people, might not hit them in that way. But if it does happen, it's not a bad thing. It's actually there to maybe make you see things in a different way. And the conflict is actually a really good thing to go through. The astrology just kind of helps you explain the experience and kind of helps you realize that, oh, okay, like, this happened, but it was kind of written in the stars for it to happen today. So what use can I make out of this event? And how can I work with this energy? So it's not necessarily there to control our actions and make us avoid certain things. It's more so there to realize the higher plan, the higher structure of things and to make us dive deeper into the present moment and understand how we can work with all the energies, what we can learn from them, even if they were difficult or conflictual or whatsoever. So yeah, big disclaimer. If there are any harsh energies, rough energies, do not use them to overly control your lives, but more so use them as a compass of understanding as to why certain things might have happened in a certain way, and understanding that they were kind of in the plans to happen on that day. So yeah, second disclaimer. So let's just get right into it. I have my chart on my program. I also have a list of the main aspects for each day that I thought were the most relevant aspects that I will share. So let's share the screen with this right here. And then let's see if I can also share um, with my notes. So right now I have my notes shared. You can see all the lists for the transits are upcoming this week. So February 13th, we've got generally a pretty mild day. We've got Venus forming a very general or generous aspect with Neptune. So we're looking at more sensitivity, softness in relationships, potentially some healing emotional energies as well during the morning time. By the way, I am using Eastern Standard Time, so we're using Toronto time. So please adjust the timing regarding your own time zone. February 4th, 14th, so Valentine's Day is when we're getting the diciness, some interesting energies coming through. We've got a Mars conjunct Pluto, which is pretty intense in itself. We might see people act in ways that are more controlling, more transformative, powerful, even action taking on that day. So we'll talk more about that. We've got Aquarius season beginning in Sidereal on that day as well. Moon is entering in Aries as well on that day. We're gonna all talk about what that means specifically. February 15th here, the aspects. We've got genuinely a lighter day on February 15th as well. Genuinely an emotionally more stable day, I would say, because the 14th does go through quite the different mix of energies and polarity. Um, but 15th overall seems a bit lighter. And then the 16th, we've got a even more of a, I would say, lighter energy because the moon does move into Taurus where it is exalted. And then we've got a few nice aspects with the moon, and then some other stuff going on that we will discuss. February 17th, very interesting day. Venus conjunct Pluto. That's a once in a year or about a year energy. We've got major intensity transformation coming through within our relationship. So you'll definitely want to stay tuned and hear about that and how you can utilize this energy. And February 18th, we've got basically nothing that happens, but we do have a lighter energy with the moon sign changing on that day. So let's get right into it. Let me share back the chart that I have here. So let's see, let's situate ourselves. Let's change up to February 13th. So pretty much one of the only things that happens on February. I am French, clearly, so you can see the accents is coming through. But clearly what's happening on February, now I'm gonna literally this word is over for me. It's done. I am no longer acknowledging that we are in this month anymore. The only thing happening on that day really is Venus forming a sextile with Neptune. So this is a soft communication. So they're communicating in a positive way. Here, the actual time that it happens is at 8:36 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So right in the morning, we have this energy coming through. Venus is our relationships and how we interact with people. Neptune is the planet of imagination, idealism, it's the planet of spirituality. It's very, very, soft, imaginative, spiritual, emotional kind of energy. So, here we might just genuinely feel like we are able to connect with people in a more, emotional way. There might be the inclination towards a deeper, more spiritual kind of connection with others. Generally speaking, it's just a good time to connect with others on a deeper level, on a more emotional level. We find that this will probably come easier to us and even more natural to us at this time as well. Um, Venus also rules what we value. And so we might see ourselves put more value towards things that are Neptunian in nature. So art, music, spiritual practices. Venus also rules our pleasure. So we find more pleasure in things that are Neptunian. So this is a great morning to wake up, meditate, do some yoga, listen to music maybe, anything that's a bit more Neptunian, creative, sensitive in nature. It's not a super huge energy though. It's not a big like in your face kind of energy, but it is very soft and it's sweet kind of energy. The other thing that happens on that day is here, and I'm just gonna back it up real quick. But eventually during the morning, we have essentially the moon forming pretty close conjunction with Chiron, and then also the North Node. So Chiron is the wounded healer. It's what's most vulnerable to us. It's kind of like our deepest wounds, but it's also our deepest ability to heal as well. And the moon is our emotional world. It's our internal world. So, with the moon in Chiron, we might go through something that maybe triggers some emotional wounds in some kind of way. Again, this might be felt by people. This might not, right? It's softer energy, especially with the moon. Moon transits are very light or not as loud, I would say. But, if you're feeling more emotionally vulnerable during this time, during the morning, there might be something that wants to kind of catch your attention, to be seen, to be healed, to be released in some kind of way. And this might be somewhat karmic. This may be somewhat relevant to kind of like our karmic path right now. Whatever the healing we're doing on an emotional level, because it is also connecting with the North Node of Faith, which is essentially our karmic path and where we're currently heading right now, our karmic growth. So there might be some, potential emotional experience that is painful, that is kind of tugging on some wounds, that is potentially very essential for our current karmic growth at this time. So again, if there is an emotional vulnerability on this day, especially during the morning, that'll only last about a couple hours. It's normal. There's definitely this kind of more sensitive, vulnerable energy, and especially with the fact that the moon is in Pisces right now or on that day. The moon again rules the collective emotional world. It rules, how we deal with our internal world and also what we need on a deeper level. With the moon in Pisces, I mean, it's sensitive, the couple days that the moon is in Pisces are days that are definitely more sensitive, very in tune, very emotional, very, very like spiritually attuned as well. It is a time to retreat inwards, to tend to our emotions, to tend to our inner worlds. So yeah, definitely way more of a sensitive, emotional energy on February 13th, especially in the morning time. So I definitely connect, go inwards during the first part of that day. Nothing really much happens for the rest of that day on February 13th, except that actually the sun enters Aquarius. I had written February 4th, 14th, but it's actually the 13th. So, yeah, actually, the sun enters Aquarius. Might be the 12th, actually. And if it might very well be the 12th. Okay, it seems like it's moving either the end of the 12th or just really beginning of the 13th. But the sun does enter the constellation or the sign of Aquarius on that day as well. So the sun rules the focus, where we put our focus as a collective, as a population. And so the general themes of the focus with the collective will be changing for a whole month because the sun stays in the sign for a whole month. And so, yeah, with the sun now moving in Aquarius, we're in Aquarius season now, meaning that the themes of Aquarius will be louder, will be more present, more seen. Prior to that, when the sun was in Capricorn, we were seeing themes of, government, of hierarchies, politics, major political stuff, in my opinion, happened in the not in the last month. I might be biased, just because, in Canada, everything seems to have been majorly politically charged in the last couple months, but there has been a lot, or the focus might have been more on, governments and structures and hierarchies, and also business and work and getting our stuff straightened up and getting structured. Very Capricorn-like energy, goal-oriented, a lot of like pursuing goals. Now that focus is changing, although if you look at the chart, we still have, four other major planets in Capricorn. So we're not quite done yet with the Capricorn energy. That's going to be staying around for or lingering with us for a little bit, especially that Venus just entered Capricorn as well for about a month. But overall, the general focus of the collective with the sun now is in Aquarius for the next month. And Aquarius is the sign of the humanitarian. It's the sign of large groups of people. It's the sign also that rules innovation, technology, anything that is more future oriented. So we might see again the focus on AI, technology, all of that being structured and being brought up, especially with Saturn there. Saturn has been in Aquarius for over a year now. Again, bringing structure to the light of innovation, of technology, AI, all of that has been major in the last year, developments and growth. So that's probably going to be brought up even more at the focus. Even now that I think recently there was just a drop on the Apple friggin' Google goggles there, the lens friggin' anyways, it looks like a VR set, but it's like a phone inside a VR set. That just kind of launched 2 weeks ago, I think. And I've personally just started seeing it more and more mainstream, where I'm seeing people purchasing it and walking around in the streets of New York and big cities with their big goggles and interacting with a whole different world inside of that. So we might be seeing more of that coming through. We might see new innovations coming through, new technology, generally speaking. But again, Aquarius is a sign of large groups of people, and that rules societies, that does rule politics, that does rule nations. So again, the theme of like large groups of people, nations, humanitarian issues as well, so human rights, injustices with large groups of people, that will definitely be brought up at the forefront of the focus. We always see a little bit more of that protest action, when Aquarius energy is brought up, because again, we're thinking about groups of people and how we're moving as a group, and if that's working with what we're doing right now or not. So those are the general themes being brought up to the surface. Aquarius is an air sign, so it's more about intellectual matters, about socializing, about communicating. So this is a time where people are not so much emotionally driven as they are more so mentally and intellectually driven. Driven towards deepening the mind and the social network of such. So very friendly, very social energy. But for everyone individually, that will be affecting you differently depending on your rising sign. So, for example, if you're a Leo rising in Sidereal, um, this does fall in your seventh house of partnerships and one-to-one relationships. So this means that the focus for you is on this realm of life, as well as the Aquarian themes in the background going on. So do definitely check your rising sign to check where this is happening, where this is landing for you in your personal life. But on the collective, this is what we're looking at with Aquarius season. So great Aquarius. I have a great Aquarius season for everyone. I personally love Aquarius season. The other thing that is to consider with Aquarius is that it is ruled by Uranus, which is a planet of surprises, unexpected shifts, unexpected changes, things shifting very quickly. So I always find that Aquarius season has surprises for us most of the time because of that Aquarian energy. Again, unconventional twist, surprises whatsoever. So do expect that potentially, and leave room and be open. And as I just touched on that earlier, we still have a bunch of different planets here in Capricorn, which we're going to touch on very soon because there's major activity happening right here. But Venus just moved into Capricorn, the last few days, and it's going to stay there for about 3 weeks to a month. I don't know the exact date, but Venus is how we relate to people and how we deal with our relationships. Capricorn is a sign of structure and things that are more serious and mature and practical. So when Venus is in Capricorn, I wouldn't say it's unhappy, but it's definitely not in its natural Libra or Taurus energy of sensuality and romance. With Venus and Capricorn, we take our relationships a little bit more seriously. We're more so thinking about like, okay, what's our plan with people? Like, where are we going here? Like, how can we build some more solid roots, some solid structures together. So this is a time to kind of get down to business with people, be practical about our relationships. Like, are we really, what are we really getting from this connection? Is this practical for us? Is this serving us? And what's the structure of our relationships? Let's define that a little bit more clearly. In terms of finances, this can be great though, because Venus does rule your finances as well. or how we deal with our finances. And in Capricorn, it's more structured, it's more about planning, organizing. So this might be a great time to organize, plan, be more grounded, less impulsive with our finances, generally speaking. So I think this is the last of my little spiel for the 13th. We're going to switch to the 14th right now because that's definitely a big day. Valentine's Day is coming in hot, literally coming in hot this year. And so let me just go there. So first little aspect that we have is let's go back. We are on the wrong day. 14th, and first aspect that we have, which just gonna point out in a second here, is right in the crux of the night, in the beginning of the night anyways, 1 a.m. More specifically 1:23 a.m. And I'm gonna be putting all the times for the transits in the description box if you want to see what time this is happening. 1:23 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Mars is forming a conjunction with Pluto. So these two right here are communicating very closely, which means that they're kind of blending their energies together. This is a transit that it takes a little bit of a longer time to dissipate. So the intensity of this transit would have already been felt, the 13th and the 12th probably as well. And it's going to be felt until, it's probably like 16th of February. It takes a while for Mars to actually separate from this aspect. It's slower moving planet. But the 14th during the night is when it does come into exactitude. The effects of this transit, however, can happen anytime within that day or the day before, day after. So this is, about once in a 2 year energy that this happens. And again, it is a communication, the blending of Mars and Pluto. So Mars is a planet of our drive, it's how we want to take action. It's what drives us, is how we pursue something. And then Pluto is a planet of power and control, death and rebirth, regeneration. It's very intense energy, very like perseverant energy, very, very deep energy. And so when these two kind of collide together, Pluto kind of like deepens Mars's energy, makes it stronger, more powerful, makes it extremely driven. I mean, both energies are very similar on their own. So when you put them together, it's like it really magnifies this driven nature. I would say that the main energy for that day is really intense and deep drive. Now Mars is also the planet of sexuality and sexual desire. So when it is with, conjunct with Pluto, which is also the planet of sexuality, yeah, it's definitely intense in that realm on that day, Valentine's Day. So that's great. Kind of good, honestly. Intense, but good. Could be intense though, and less of that sweet, romantic Libra-like energy, more of like that really intense, like raw energy, I would say. Um, but overall, it's just there's a depth to our drive, to the passion on that day. There's a depth to how we take action. We can really like just fully hone in on what we want to take action on and take some pretty powerful steps towards what we want to act on during this time. That's the positive side of this transit. There are many different layers to this transit, I would say. There's definitely a higher octave and a more, I would say, lower octave or possibility as well. The higher octave is, if you've got something you want to act on that day, if there's something that you feel driven, you need to start, you need to move towards, do it on that day. Like there's tremendous energy, tremendous passion, willpower, a lot of drive, like just like stamina, even like physically speaking. If you were to like have a really big workout on that day, it would probably go pretty well. It would probably be pretty intense, but go well. But there's just so much drive and stamina. So if you want to take action, if you want to do something and just really hone in on that, potentially could be a great day for that. And it's in Capricorn, which is productive sign in itself. So this could be a day where people could take major productive action that is very powerful, very driven. and actually make a huge difference in what they're currently moving towards. Um, the negative, more lower connotation of this aspect is that, Pluto is the planet of power and control. And when it is so close to Mars like that, people might want to act to gain power and to gain control. So we might very much see in the collective the theme of people overpowering others, people taking steps to assume control over others. This might be even seen in like the grander scheme of politics, or the news, or major events that happen on that day. But since it is in Capricorn, it could definitely be revolving around, political activity as well, where there's like something that's some new action taking, some new development that is meant to gain control, more power. On a more microscopic scale, we could see people, like their drive is so intense that they're very relentless on that day. So let's say it's a drive that's not as productive. Let's say it's the drive to hurt someone, or to cause conflict. It's gonna be really hard to give up on that day. You're really gonna want to hone in on what you want to take action on, even if it might not be very even if I might be a bit more negative, I would say. Yeah, be careful for going or being on a power trip, like trying to act in a way that overpowers people, or that is solely for the sake of gaining control. So that I would say is the more lower octave of this transit, and for that reason, it could definitely be associated with conflict, with aggressivity. Again, because that drive is like it's like really intense. So don't piss people off, basically. Not really, not really what I mean by that, but if someone's got a goal on that day, they're gonna go after it, and in a very relentless way. So make sure that that goal for you, anyways, is productive. And be careful not to push yourself too much too as well, right? Because with Mars and Pluto, like we can just think like we're invincible, and we're like just gonna push yourself until the rope is thinned out. That could be definitely accident prone or injury prone, in some kind of way. Um, or yeah, just taking action that in general just allows for some sort of transformation, or maybe a transformation in a way that we take action on something, So yeah, that's kind of like my take on this energy. It is pretty intense. There definitely could be some intense energy in the air, I would say. Yeah, people doing things that are very powerful, very potentially controlling, very intense. So yeah, if there's that dense energy in the air for you on that day, especially during the nighttime, the morning, but the whole day really, that's why you might feel extremely driven. If you do, check yourself on what exactly you're gonna hone in into, because chances are that once you pin for it, you're gonna be pretty relentless on it. So make sure it's something that is actually productive for you. And yeah, other than that, on that day, the moon does enter Aries, as well. So that is as well, the moon is our emotions as a collective, how we deal with them, how we deal with our inner world. And Aries is a fiery sign. It's very fiery. It's very impulsive. It's very quick. So our emotions go from being sensitive and internal to being very like quick, impulsive, and loud, and dynamic, very dynamic emotional world. So that's gonna be interesting, going alongside that Mars conjunct Pluto again, very dynamic, like masculine, like a raw, action-driven kind of energy. Um, Kind of weird thing as well on this day is that, the moon shifts into Aries, and then at 11 a.m. Eastern time and about 12 p.m. Eastern time, the moon's gonna square both Pluto and Mars. So moon is actually forming a square, and actually I'll just pull it up on the screen right now, so you guys can see here. So we're gonna be looking at the moon in Aries. basically right here, forming a square angle with this concoction right there. So square is an angle of tension. It means that there is some sort of imbalance or, conflict between both parties. So here we have the moon, which is our emotions. Here we have, Pluto again and Mars. So yeah, there's definitely some emotional intensity going on, caused by whatever intensity is happening during this day. Maybe some stuff that makes us reactive, very much on an emotional level. Maybe some stuff that exposes emotions that, are hidden. But yeah, one thing for sure is that we're definitely a bit reactive on that day. We're definitely very intense feeling, and very, very driven as well. So again, if you're driven to, again, hone in on something during that day, check yourself, maybe take a second before doing that and ask yourself, if what you're about to hone in on is productive. And if so, go full out, but if there is that intensity on that day, if there's a bit of like diciness, it's definitely normal. Very dynamic, very passionate, but potentially very dicey kind of day. So yeah, that is a pretty much for Valentine's Day. Very raw, intense energy. Yeah, happening on that day. So let's move on to the 15th. Because the 15th is definitely lighter, although there's still going to be this, again, reminiscence of that transit there, because it's still going to be active for a couple days. But basically, let's go to February 15th. So on that day, we don't have as much happening. Honestly, in the middle of the night, we have essentially the moon making a conjunction to Jupiter. So that is, let's see, let's back it up to like 1 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So essentially right here, around that time, I've got the exact time again in the description box here. The moon makes a conjunction to Jupiter. So Jupiter, planet of abundance, joy, optimism. This energy gets kind of fused in with our emotional world. And so yeah, we might be feeling a bit more optimistic. If you're up during this time, you might be sleeping if you're in the Eastern Standard Time Zone. But if you're elsewhere in the world, more in the East, you might feel more lighter, more optimistic, more jovial, even emotionally speaking, which will probably be very well received after the 14th. If there was some kind of intensity that happened, maybe there was none, but whatsoever, there might be this general underlying sense of optimism, going on. Yeah, feeling expansive, I would say. Um, and what else happens on that day? We do have eventually around noon, 1 p.m. Again, very soft energy, not something that's going to be very, very loud. But we do have Mercury, planet of communication, making a positive angle with the North Node and Chiron. So it's making a sextile here. So this could allude to the fact that, there could be communication that's a bit more faded, or communication that's a bit more, I would say, karmic on that day. So there might be, yeah, faded communication, faded information coming in that's essential for our current karmic growth, on our current karmic path. On a macroscopic level, we could see news that is very important, very relevant, very karmic. But overall, there's communication that could be either triggering, you know, uh, triggering some kind of wounds. That could be healing some kind of wounds, and that could also be very karmic, very relevant. So that happens around 1 p.m. Exact time is in the description box. And then later on that day, we're talking about 7:30 p.m. 7:30 p.m., the moon is still moving in the later degrees of Aries, and then it makes a conjunction to Uranus. So now we have Uranus energy kind of influencing our emotional world. Uranus is expect the unexpected surprises, unexpected shifts, very quick changes. So we could see some more dynamic energy on the emotional front. Maybe some unexpected thing happens that make it changes our emotional world very quickly. Maybe there is a something kind of like surprising that happens and makes us shift very quickly in our feelings. So it seems to be more like a dynamic kind of energy with our emotions or emotional world at the end of the day. But other than that, there's honestly not much that happens on that day. We're still kind of recovering from the 14th and the lingering intensity. Still a great day to act upon this Mars and Pluto energy again, taking very powerful action towards what your intentions are moving towards during this time, using that drive, that willpower, that powerful energy to take some really powerful action, to really hone in on something and go for it. So this is still very much active in the energy. Again, we still got the moon in Aries, so we're still feeling passionate, we're feeling driven. And you'll notice, with all the Capricorn energy, with the Aries energy going on, it's very cardinal in its energy. So cardinal energy is all about new beginnings and starting something new. So on a collective level, we might see, during this time, especially with all the Capricorn and the Aries energy, a lot of new beginnings, a lot of shifting towards new energy, shifting towards something new. And so, yeah, kind of just interesting to notice that it's a very dynamic, new beginning and starting something new kind of energy during this time. But again, with Moon and Aries, our emotional world needs stimulation. It needs passion. It needs activity. It needs to move around, start something new. Maybe do some physical exercises. Very good days for physical exercises, actually, the 14th and 15th. Yeah, just a lot of passion, a lot of energy. Moving on to the 16th now, because I do believe there's a bit more happening on that day. 16th, 16th. Okay. So not too much happening on that day, but still some relevant activity that's worth mentioning here. Um, let's see. Let's switch that to the next day. So on the 16th, basically one of the first thing that happens at 4 a.m. is the moon does shift into Taurus. So the moon changes into the Taurus, makes our emotional worlds a bit more stable, a bit more calm. The moon is exalted in Taurus, so we're finding again our emotions don't go like this as much. It's not as all over the place, especially with the moon being in Aries, so close to Jupiter and Uranus. Offering some a lot of dynamic energy in our inner worlds. With the moon in Taurus, this is a very subtle energy that we can feel where. We feel just a bit more grounded, I would say, in our emotional world and emotionally speaking, internally, we're looking for things that reflect the Taurus energy. So things that reflect the physical world. So when the moon is in Taurus, it's a great time to actually focus on the sensual aspect of life. So we're talking everything that stimulates the five senses: food, good music, being in nature. Being in a comfortable pajama, whatever it is, taking a nice bath, just slowing down the pace and focusing on the five senses, focusing on the material, physical world. And so the moon moves in Taurus for the next 2 days. So that's already pretty good, and much more stable in the energy. Next thing that happens during the morning, so about 10 a.m. On that day, we've got basically the first quarter moon, which, oh, no, we're not in this day yet. Let's go back 2 hours and let's go to about 11 a.m. So next thing that happens is what we call the first quarter moon. So this is when there's this first square aspect between the sun and the moon, and this is the first checkup after the new moon. This is the first potentially challenge or the first call to action after the new moon. So the new moon happened on February 9th, and then the first quarter moon is when we're kind of like revisiting this new moon intention. Like, are we moving towards it? Are we actually taking action? What do we need to adjust to fully follow through with the intention of the new moon? So this might be something where, again, we get something gets brought up to our attention, we get called out on something, something happens where we might have to revisit the intention that we placed about a week ago and see if we're actually moving towards there. Not a major energy, but just something to maybe just keep in mind if you're conscious or aware. And then later on during that day, which is kind of nice and kind of welcomed, is the moon does form a really nice angle with Venus and Pluto. So there's a trine aspect going on between the moon and the Venus and Pluto, and I'm gonna actually just move it right to that time. Again, exact time in the description box. But again, moon forming really positive or natural angle with Venus and with Pluto. And so with the moon and Venus interacting together, there's a focus on relationships and pleasure. We're feeling pleasure on a more easier sense, emotionally speaking, maybe having very like easy and positive interactions with people, with our relationships. And then with moon forming a trine with Pluto, there's also an emotional depth going on. But the thing that's happening also in the background is if we look at these two, they're starting to get quite close together. And that's what we're going to talk about for the day after, or February 17th, when Venus actually joins with Pluto. But here you can already feel this energy building up. They're not even within a degree apart, or about a degree apart at this time. And so we're going to talk about this in just a minute here, but we can start to feel this intensity, happening and building up, especially in our relationship sense, in our relationship lives. And so this is pretty close to exactitude, but on an emotional level, we're kind of focused or brought upon this energy around the afternoon, where again, there's emotional depth happening with Pluto energy coming in and connecting with the moon, and there is relationship, at the forefront of our emotions as well. So overall, there is an emotional energy geared towards relationships that have a depth to them at this time. So yeah, there might be feelings that are a bit more intense, emotions that are a bit more intense, and emotions that are intense regarding relationships, regarding the people in our lives, because that's going to be pretty much at the forefront of the energy on the 16th, and also especially on the 17th when it is into coming into exact contact. So, that's pretty much, for the afternoon. And then towards the night, so that's around 10, almost 11 p.m. We basically have Mercury here forming a square angle with Uranus. So they come into exact later in the night. But essentially, Mercury being the planet of communication, how we speak, how we think, and also transportation and the media, and how we get around to where we want to go, technology as well. And Uranus is surprises, again, unexpected shifts, unconventional shifts, disruption as well. With the square, there's definitely like a conflict between both of them. This could look like, communication that is very unexpected, very surprising, and that kind of like forces you to change your mind about something, but is kind of conflicting. You don't necessarily want to think that way, or you don't necessarily want to have this conversation, or it's something that's very surprising and is like almost unwelcomed or a bit conflictual. So there could be like very sudden information or thought process that comes into the mind, into the communication during this time, during the night. If there's kind of surprising or shocking information that comes your way, and it's kind of like, it's you don't really vibe with that. It is kind of normal. It's definitely in the energy, and that is definitely a transit that wants you to remain open, mentally speaking, and expect the unexpected when it comes to communication or messaging or the news. There could be like very surprising news that comes out at this time. Disruptions within technology, disruptions within our communication methods, disruptions in regards to transportation. I have so many experiences, actually not so many, but I have multiple experiences during Mercury and Uranus squares where cars just something happens. So if you're on the road during this time, maybe be aware of that, be careful. more like, surprising or erratic energy coming through, disruptions in the transportation methods as well. But yeah, expect the unexpected is stay open-minded. If something comes about and it's like a bit shocking and you're not necessarily receptive to this information, or it's very shocking, it's there to make you change the way you think about something. And it's there to make you open up your mind to new perspectives that would be maybe a bit unconventional, a bit different, or this is a time that we're meant to shift mentally in a very quick, rapid way. So that's it for the 16th. That's pretty much it for the 16th. It's really nice to see the moon in Taurus where there's more stability and a more receptive energy going on during the day. But again, all of this preparing us for February 17th, where we have definitely a little bit more of an intense energy coming through. So literally the only thing I have written for February 17th is that Venus and Pluto conjunction. So this conjunction happens at 3:48 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Let me just pull back the chart so we can actually find this conjunction in exactitude. So here we have it right here. Um, Again, both planets mingling here. This is energy that you'll probably it's exact during the night, but you'll feel it throughout the whole day. It's gonna take, about a day for Venus to start separating from this aspect, but yeah, this is basically the blending of Venus and Pluto. So Venus, again, like I've talked about, is all about our relationships, how we deal with people, the kinds of people that we interact with. It's all about how we relate to others. Venus is also what we find pleasure in, and Venus is also our finances. Pluto, as we just talked about, because it's been a very Plutonian week, Pluto is a planet of death and rebirth. It's the planet of depth, what's beyond the surface, what's below the surface, I should say, because Pluto is the planet of shadows and what's hidden below the surface. So it's all about things that are unconscious, things that are taboo, things that we don't want to see, things that we don't want to touch. We don't want to address those things. And through addressing those things and through bringing them to the light, which Pluto forces us to do, is when we have that transformative experience and an experience of death and rebirth. So Pluto, very profound energy, very intense, very complex, very psychological. And so when it is connecting with Venus, we can expect our relationships to have a very Plutonian feel to them throughout that day. If you've got an intense day in terms of your relationships, if you get into some sort of, you know, um, a conversation or energy with someone and you're like, oh my God, what is this intensity? What is this like, like gutted feeling that I get during the day with people? It's very intense. It's very normal. This is definitely in the works for that day. Most people will definitely feel and experience this in to some different degree, some different level individually, of course. But this is a once in a year transit. And so again, on that day, we're focusing on connecting with people, but on a deeper level. This can go many different, yeah, again, many different octaves. The higher octave of a Venus and Pluto conjunction is just connecting with people on a very deep level, like having connections that are not very superficial, actually like being very vulnerable with people, or actually wanting to get to the bottom of something with someone. And through that process, being able to transform, being able to actually shift in some kind of way that's very positive, um, having some sort of transformation inducing or induced by other people on that day, where you can actually like see yourself more deeply and see others more deeply. And through that process of seeing yourself more deeply, and maybe exposing something that was usually hidden, then you can kind of transform and welcome in this new energy within yourself, but it still might be intense. In the lower octave of this energy, this can look like definitely people getting into some sort of conflict, because there could definitely be some clashes, some intensity, where if people are not ready to see what's hidden, if people are not ready to reveal the shadows, when this aspect comes about, and then there's like this, confrontation, and we're wanting to like maybe talk about something that's very, very complex, Well, if the people are not ready for that or not mature in that level, then it might just, it might cause some kind of conflict. It's if there's resistance to that, it might make the process very difficult. The other thing is that Pluto does rule power and control. So when it is connected with Venus, we can unfortunately see more of this activity within relationships where there's a need for others to control others, to have power over others. So that can definitely be a lower octave of this energy for sure. So, like jealousy, possessiveness, if there's any of that already going on in your lives, this will definitely be emphasized. But the biggest thing about this transit is that, again, Pluto exposes what's hidden. And when it's with Venus, um, Pluto exposes what's hidden within our relationships life. So, like even if you're in a healthy relationship, like there's always something that can be grown or seen or exposed, right? And that is a day where it's gonna happen. So if something is triggered, if something is being exposed, work with it, don't resist it, don't be mad at it, like see it as an opportunity to transform and grow as a couple and as a person as well, right? Because there could definitely be some things that are exposed about yourself through the people in your life on that day. And it might be very triggering, it might not be easy to see because Pluto is not an easy energy to confront. But if you do go with that processes, and if you are open to exposing the shadows, and seeing what's hidden, then you will give yourself the opportunity to gain more power within yourself and in your life, through again transforming something within yourself that needs to be seen. So again, it's really the process of transformation within our relationship sector. So there will be stuff that is usually hidden that will be exposed in your relationships. There might be intense experiences that expose like hidden feelings that you have about the people in your life. Definitely some sort of intense process that happens around relationships on that day, but fuels transformation, fuels deeper intimacy, possibly as well, deeper connection within yourself and with others. So lean into that process, but I'm just gonna say it might be a little bit intense for sure. When it comes to finances, same thing, might be an exposure to what's usually hidden. There might be a transformation in our finances in some kind of way, kind of like a death and rebirth process where we're cutting off something that's not working anymore. When it comes to our pleasure, Venus rules what we value, what we find pleasure in. With Pluto, we have the area of the taboo, the area of the unseen. So we may love the things that are taboo on that day, like death and rebirth and the occults and astrology and mysticism, sexuality, all of those like hidden, like not want to be talked about kind of topics. They kind of want to be, seen on that day. So again, great day to maybe focus on that kind of energy. So that's it for the 17th. We're pretty much honing in on the last day here. Literally, the last day is the 18th. And so if we go on that day, there's not much happening. The only thing that happens is that eventually throughout the later part of the day, and the exact time for that is about noon. Because right now we're at 5 a.m. About noon, we have the moon changing into Gemini for the next oncoming 3 days. So, with that, again, our emotional worlds take on a much more dynamic energy with Gemini, much more intellectual and mental kind of energy, very social. So, when moon is in Gemini, usually it's emotions are a bit lighter, very communicative with our emotions, very social. So we're in the mood to socialize starting on, February 18th. We're on the mood to, network and learn and talk. And that's probably going to be very greatly received after the last couple days because, yeah, there's definitely intensity going on for most of the week. It's a very Plutonian week. There's a little bit of Uranus energy coming through, but mostly it is very very Plutonian in itself. So Yeah, definitely get ready for the potential intensity. Pluto asks us to expose what is hidden, expose what is usually unseen, in order for us to allow a part of ourselves or our lives to die, to exit our lives, to cut it off. So if you're noticing something's not working, something's being brought up to you, have the courage to actually expose it fully and decide if you actually want to keep it around or not, because chances are, for the most part, there's something that wants to, leave, or something that wants to go through this death process, whether it's an internal energy or whether it's quite literally something in your physical life, like a someone or a situation of some sort. So yeah, intense energy. But best of luck to everyone to, for navigating it and lean into that process. It's written in the sky, so work with it, don't avoid it, I would say, is the best advice for this. So I hope that this was informational, enjoyable, easy to absorb. If there's any questions, feel free to comment, reach out to me. I'll leave my email probably in the description box below as well. For any astrological services, there are ways to communicate with me, email or Instagram. So please feel free to do so. Also want to give a shout out to the person that inspired me to do weekly astrology updates. His name is Rick on YouTube. I've been watching him for years. However, I don't really watch him anymore because he's still in the tropical algorithm, so we don't use the same system anymore. But still has really good, like thorough analysis and very good explanation of the transits. So if you want to learn generally how transits work, great guy to go check out. Maybe I'll link his channel down below. Even if he's tropical, I still really respect his I respect his practice 100%. And I was very inspired by him to do the weekly astrology many years ago, actually. So I'm happy to finally be doing them and getting into them. So, yeah, enough of the babbling. Have a great week. Happy Valentine's Day. And I'll see you potentially, hopefully, in the next one. So, see ya.